Silver Doctors Live. We are live on air. This is Silver Doctors Live. It is Monday, February the 10th, 2020. I'm hoping everybody had a nice, safe, and fun weekend here. It is Monday. My name is Paul Half Dollar Eberhardt, and I am here with co-host today, Mike. He's over on this side today. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing good, my friend. How you doing?
Doing good, doing real good. It's been one of those news jam-packed weekends, so we got a lot to unbox here in the time that we have today. So it's a lot of stuff to talk about again, as always, Mike.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me see here. So make sure everything going well. So if everything sounds good on my end, let me know in the chat. Just trying to shake up a little thing on couple things on the back end, so to make sure everybody hears as well and go from there. So, and then we'll keep moving. So let me see if there's anything here in the chat. Anything pop up on your end just yet?
Nope. Just I got some thumbs up. We're looking good. I think I got my audio issue fixed.
Sounds good.
So we're going to experiment with me running these streams for a while so I can get up to speed at Mike's, but I'm never going to be able to pass Mike's speed because you're like the super race car driver.
Well, thank you, my friend. All right, so let's take it off. What do you want to take this today? Let's go.
Okay.
Ready.
Well, over the weekend something happened, and it's interesting because it poses a very interesting question. So this is what I want to start with.
All right.
This is an article that I wrote this weekend, yesterday actually, because I'm kind of torn between this. So on Friday, Mike Pompeo was like, hey, we're sending all these masks and all these supplies over to China and other places all over the world, and we're prepared to spend $100 million.
Yeah.
At least that's what he's saying initially. So here's the issue that I have, right? We've been talking about this since the 20th of January on our we've been talking about this since the 20th of January on our live streams. And here's something from the 24th of January talking about a shortage of medical PPE, personal protective equipment. Here's something from the 28th. Now this one is talking about shortages in the United States, and the person that they interviewed in this one, and let me go ahead and put this link here in the chat, just so people can check it out if they want to. That'll fit. Where they're talking about the person that's the manager at this drugstore / pharmacy says all of the distributors are out of masks in the United States and they can't get any masks. Then we scroll down a little bit on January 31st. That's when we got news that India, as an entire nation, has banned the export of all personal protective equipment. So, fast forward to the weekend. Okay, so then on the weekend, the general director of the World Health Organization says that the world is facing chronic shortages of masks and personal protective equipment.
Yeah.
So what do? We're just sending all the stuff that we got over. So I guess the question is, I guess we don't need it here, right? Because everybody's saying that, there's nothing to worry about and that the risk is low. What do you feel about this? Am I just being like too prepper selfish here and saying that, wait a second, we should kind of keep some of this behind in case we need it?
Okay, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because there's shortages out there of this equipment, right? And China's our enemy, right? So why are we giving this stuff to our enemy, right? So that's my question: is why are we sending all? See, here's the thing that Mike Pompeo tweeted out right there, showing airplanes getting loaded with a bunch of supplies. If it's private charity that wants to send something to China, that's fine to me, right? If somebody has a group or a nonprofit organization wants to send something, but our own government sending supplies that we could need here over to China, I don't know. I'm kind of torn between that. I don't think it's the right thing to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's just the mainstream narrative of trying to appear to be cooperating and helping out any way they can. And so once again, those carts there of goods going out, what exactly are in those carts is to be questioned. And then on top of that, if there is no way of really measuring, determining how severe and how much of a threat this pandemic situation really is, then what good are those, what's in those boxes? So what exactly are they sending? And on top of that, I would imagine China has their own aid or whatnot, and there should be other countries also contributing, because every nation is going to have their own situation pretty soon if they haven't already. So once again, I think it's just the U.S. trying to play that we are helping and we are leading the world and this and that, whatever. But in the meantime, I was watching several videos throughout the weekend, and it looks like even in China, they are removing people from their homes and forcing them to go into quarantine. But I was watching some of the it looks like police officers and maybe the emergency personnel, but the masks that they had on were just your generic everyday look like normal masks. So I'm thinking like they're wrestling people out of their homes over there in the Asian area, and they have on these what appears to be these little rinky-dinky masks that are nothing special. So I'm wondering, like, what exactly are they afraid of for their own health, or is this all some type of effort to to bring people together and then put them in some type of concentration type camps or whatever? It leads me to question a lot of things.
Yes, you said that. That's exactly the same thing that I was thinking about this morning, because check this out. Here's a tweet right here. And it says, this tweet says, the largest quarantine site in Hong Kong is being built at full speed without public consultation, and completion is expected in 1 to 2 months as the need to isolate suspicious cases grows amid the coronavirus outbreak. It's like, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Are they building quarantine? Are they building hospitals, or are they building FEMA camps and concentration camps? I mean, this is like, because your point is valid, because this thing spreads super easy. So like all of these cops, and I've seen those videos too, like wrestling people out, and these people are like fighting and they're flailing around and stuff like that. Well, you're gonna have stuff spewing everywhere, and if you just got that rinky-dink blue mask, which isn't even N-nothing rated, that's not going to protect you at all.
Exactly. And so that is something that everybody should be wondering. Why exactly are they forcing people into quarantine, impacted or not, infected or not? How do you know? Why not just test them and let them stay in their own house to not have such a burden on the government of having to house people, clothes people, food, provide food? You would think they would just let them stay at home, make sure they're healthy, and shut your windows and leave them alone. But yet they pulling everybody out. Yes. So I think what's going on in China with all that stuff we're talking about now is a prerequisite for what the overall global game plan might be, as far as forcing us all into some type of FEMA style camps, imprisonment, and some imprisonment style. But yet I think that's probably going to be the global approach to handle this eventually, because you put a lot of people in a contained environment. How else will things spread,
Yes, the interesting thing about that is, China's hardline communist, right? So you got a lot of people that are scared to not follow orders. So you got people going door to door, rounding people up. Yeah. We talk about that here in the United States, and I don't know, people think that, well, I would stand up for the rights of people and I would never go door to door rounding people up. But I mean, we hear our politicians saying stuff like that, right? Like several years ago, Hillary said we need to put people in re-education camps.
Well, that's it. And especially after watching that State of the Union address, where it looks like the left side didn't stand up when it came time to protecting the rights to bear arms. And so if the Democrats want to remove guns out of your possession, that'll make it a lot easier for people to go to your door and say, I need you to exit right now or else, because you can't go to the door and try to remove people by force when they're heavily armed, because I don't think people will probably go down in a blaze of glory as opposed to to be dragged out of their house and held in some type of concentration style or camp or whatnot. So I think that will be problematic. So that's why the push to remove guns, because if they try to go door to door, they want to make sure that there's nothing on the other side waiting on them.
Exactly. Mike, economic contagion has begun. The economic fallout has begun, and we kind of need to talk about this for a little bit. You want to check in with the chat first before we move on?
Oh, yes, we must do so. I apologize. And also, phone lines are open. I got one of the lines open, so if you guys want to give a call, I think we might have had a call. I might have missed it, so no, I didn't. But give us a call, 567-336-0844, and we'll get you on here. And let me actually pull up the chat and see what's going on. As always, highlight at Silver Doctors, and we can go from there. And so David Phillips says, can you guys make some predictions for the next 6 months? Okay, that's an interesting one there. And so we can touch on that. Which is Lucy says, do people really believe the USA would take us from our homes? The USA, I'm assuming you mean the government, the military, or whoever. I wouldn't put it past the powers that be to try to attempt something like that, given the fact that we're witnessing the economic global meltdown right now, and there's going to be a lot of angry people, and so you got to go gather all the people who present a challenge to the mainstream narrative. So
there is precedence for this in the United States. Remember, in World War II, we held the Japanese essentially in concentration camps, and a lot of them were like put in like New Mexico and other desert places with kind of hostile environments, so they couldn't escape. So, granted, that's on a small scale, right? But there is precedence for this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question here. So we got a couple things here. It says,
Do we take collect calls? No, we don't live blood pressure. We don't take collect calls.
what do you say?
Do you take collect calls? He'll be like spoofing where he is, and we'll end up taking a collect call from India, and that thing will be $1 zillion by the time we get off.
There was I lost a question. So a question from low blood pressure, but ask it again because I lost it in chat. But let's touch on that quick thought about next 6 months. Oh no, here's a question here. I'm sorry. It says, why are all quarantine planes going to military bases? Do they have a magic cure? That's from low blood pressure. That was his question. So a couple questions there. I want to touch on those real quick and then we'll move on.
Mm-hmm. Well, the quarantine in the United States is being handled by the U.S. military. It's a joint effort. It's a collaboration between the U.S. military and HHS and the CDC, right? So I'm sure that's how most countries are going to do it. As far as the next 6 months, it's interesting because have you personally like changed any of your like ideas as far as like my daughter was like, hey, we got a long weekend coming up. You think we can go travel somewhere? And I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to travel to any big cities just right now. So I want to kind of see how this pans out. Like, is it affecting any kind of decisions you've been making as in regards to travel?
It has not, unfortunately, it has not because I'm of the mindset that I'm not going to allow this situation to basically force me to self quarantine myself as well as my family, and so I'm consciously aware of some things, attempting to try to clean up some things on the back end as best I can. I don't think there's no real way to prepare for something if this is the real deal as far as being a globally systemically important health scare. Then there's no real there's nothing that you can really do other than just avoid certain things. But I'm not about to just quarantine myself in my house and in my city. So I do have plans to go somewhere. I'm going leaving in a couple of weeks, and so I got plans. So I'm not gonna let this hinder my plans. I'm gonna live life to the fullest until I can't live it no more. That's my motto. So
well, my family
Yeah.
had been talking about visiting Chicago, and that was like several months ago, and definitely wouldn't go to Chicago. And now they're talking about visiting New York City, and I was like, I don't really want to go to New York City either, because this brings me up to the next topic that I want to discuss.
Yeah.
And the economic fallout, and this is very interesting once we start thinking about this and talking about this, but the economic fallout has begun, and that's why I titled this today. Here's just the first thing, and this is just something that pops up over the weekend. New York City, Chinatown, restaurants and tourism sales plunge, right? So all the way over here, right, we're seeing there's problems in Chinatown and people don't want to go there. But here's the main point that I want to make, and it just comes down to tourism in general.
Yeah.
Talking about, first of all, the Diamond Princess. That's the big cruise ship that's docked off of Japan. And they have over 400, and I think I put that up. Yeah, I put that up. They have over 400 people from the United States that were on this cruise ship. There's 23 people, and it doesn't say if they're Americans. It just says from the United States who have this. So the actual numbers, when you look on the CDC's website, don't reflect any people that might be American that are infected abroad. This is only in the continental United States, right? But here's my point, and I'm going around in circles because there's so many things to discuss here. But all of this is like causing problems in tourist areas, right? What is a cruise ship? It's a tourist area. Then what is the other thing that we learned? We learned about the 5 British people that were infected in the ski resort in France, right? So now people don't want to go to Chinatown in New York, right? So here's something else, right? So now the LPGA, right? This is only one example. There's several examples of this, but the LPGA is canceling 2 other tournaments later this month, and one of them is in the beginning of March, from the February 20th through the 23rd, and then the 27th through the 1st of March. Then you go through stuff like this, right? Here's CNBC this morning. And just a couple things to point out that are interesting are Sony, they're withdrawing from a conference in Barcelona amid the coronavirus concerns. So my point is, anything that's tourism related, there's 2 points here. One, what happens in a tourist-related place? People come from all over, then they get infected, then they go somewhere else, and then they just spread that stuff like wildfire. That's point number 1. Then point number 2, that's the first thing that people are going to consider not doing, is going to these high-concentrated tourist attractions. So that's what I mean by, we're already starting to see economic fallout with anything that's discretionary like this is already starting to get the axe. Thoughts on any of that, Mike?
Yeah, and it's just it's a natural response towards a situation that's uncertain. So most people are concerned with their health, like the health scare. This current health scare is probably the biggest. And so I just, as I mentioned, I did a video, the biggest global systemic important distraction. And so this health scare is the ultimate distraction because it is something that you can't avoid because everybody wants to make sure they take care of their own personal health first before anything. So anything business wise, trip wise, family vacations, resorts, anything that people would naturally do in their normal lives will be a second thought after their health now. So therefore, for example, you mentioned you don't want to go to Chicago, you don't want to go to New York. That's tourist dollars that will not be spent there this year from your family. So imagine the other millions of families that will probably be rethinking as well. And so how can you not avoid some type of economic meltdown? Because no one's spending. Therefore, there's going to be problems because if we don't spend and borrow, then there's no economy. So
that's right. That's right. Because here's another thing, right? Airbnb, right? The place where you can have a party and then have a mass shooting at the same time. That place, Airbnb, suspends Beijing bookings until the end of the month. So, I mean, this is just all the way around. This is getting right down to the person who might think that they might not be affected are in fact ending up becoming affected by this one way or another. So, this is one of those things that we haven't even gotten into the supply shortages and the manufacturing shortages and the inflation just in general and the medical equipment shortages. And then there's still that pig Ebola or swine fever or whatever they call it going on where they're estimating now 40% of the total pig population in China has been slaughtered because of this. So, these economic ramifications are barely starting. And here's why I'm saying that, right? Because this morning, it's just, hey, let's get back to work. Everybody get back to work. We're getting back to work today. So that's just the message that the mainstream media is signaling. Like in my report this morning. That's what I titled it, right? It's they're trying to push a return to normalcy. So here's here's Reuters, right? China returns to work. Hey, chop chop, get back to work. We got to get to work. There's the global economy to start moving. CNN, they're back to their favorite subject, which is Trump bashing. Fox News, well, they're talking about Hollywood, right? So it's just back to normal, bread and circuses. Just carry on. Don't worry about that coronavirus thing over there. Yeah. But we can see that the economic implications are already started, and that cruise ship, I think, is going to be one of the interesting points to all of this because there are now 135 people that are confirmed positive on that. The death rate conservatively is like at least 3%. So it's safe to say that at least 3 of these people are going to die. So I think about this cruise ship almost as like, how whenever like a mine collapses and then the whole world kind of focuses in on the plight of the miners that are trapped underneath. This is kind of like the same thing here with, there's 2,600 passengers and several hundred crew that are quarantined off of this ship and have been there since February the 3rd. And the outbreak is ongoing on this cruise ship. So I'm going to stop there and let you get your thoughts in again because I keep rambling.
So my thing is, with that ship you're referring to now, is that where did it originate from? Where did it come from initially?
I'm not sure, but it's off the coast of Japan right now. So, it's owned by Carnival, right? So it's just one of these global cruises that people can book and take as a tourist thing.
So that's my question. So without knowing the full extent of what's going on there, and other than just the cases you're talking about, I wonder, where did it originate from, and could that ship itself have been strategically placed there with a lot of infected people? Because I'm curious to find out that I'm sure there's a lot of other ships this quarantine is shut off on various borders and coastlines. So why that particular ship there? Who's on there? Where they come from? Are they Japanese in nature? Are they from just that region in general? Who knows? But that's very frightening to be on. So imagine imagine the amount of people on that boat that's stuck in their cabins or whatever, and they may fall victim to that 135 plus. And imagine a whole ship of how many hundreds that would probably be impacted by that. That may not get off that ship is what it boils down to.
Yeah. Well, when they get infected, they're taking the infected people off of the ship, but it's still spreading on the ship. That's the thing about this, right? And people are people are afraid to go out. Like in that article, it talks about people are afraid to go out of their cabin room. Right? They're afraid to do any kind of interaction with. So they're literally been cooped up in this one room since February 3rd, and they're not even going out of their rooms. And, it was supposed to be initially a 2-week quarantine, but if people keep getting infected, they're going to keep this thing there for who knows how long.
Yeah, and that's the thing. How are you going to stay in your cabin and not come out for food, water? So they're going to have to bring it to you or whatever. So yeah, it's something that I couldn't imagine myself being in, and unfortunately wouldn't want to be in. I'm sure, as well as a lot of those people. So
yeah, people are going to have they're going to be losing their minds in there. And they
uh,
talk about they're allowed to go out onto the deck, like once a day for a break or something like that, in their full protective gear. So it's like a prison yard almost. It's like a floating prison.
on
It's
the
not
water.
a vacation.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a
Go ahead.
couple questions here in the chat. Let me see here.
All right, pop them up. Let me see here.
What if NCOV is used to literally remove paper currency because it? Oh, that's just sparked a thought that I have. Thank you for asking that question, John Leonard. Because it goes back to something that you said last week, and I'm gonna pull up the map. Check this out, Mike. Here's the map. There's 40,000 cases. 910, and this is like, there was supposedly that exiled Chinese doctor who said there's 1.5 million infected in China, and there's been 50,000 plus deaths. So who knows what the real number is? But let's just go off this map for a second. 40,000 cases, 910 deaths, 3,500 have recovered. But if we zoom over here and we scroll in a little bit, whoops, that was a little bit too much. Okay, let's see here. Probably 1 million people are on this. Guess what? There are no cases, Mike. There are no cases in Africa, and there are still no cases in Latin America. So I actually started thinking about this currency aspect, because you talk about the push to take us digital. But what do they have to do to take us digital? Well, they got to bring the whole entire world up to speed when it comes to technology, right? So the developed industrialized world is already up to speed when it comes to technology, but Africa and Latin America, I mean, it's arguable how well they are up to speed. And obviously in some countries, it's first class and first rate and first world and developed and better than others, right? But the point is, if they're going to make this push to go global, they got to get the whole world up to speed on these digital global payment structure systems.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the infrastructure for that in all those countries are they're well underway, because I think it's literally a central bank led effort these days for the CBDC, central bank digital currencies, to be rolled out starting this year. So between China, Russia, and all the other leading nations that are openly admitting that they have stuff ready to roll out this year. And so now it's going to be a matter of the smaller nations falling in the sink. And so Africa and Latin America will definitely be in the mix. But those nations are, for the most part, second, third world status, whereas we mentioned a lot of them use their mobile phones and their minutes on their phones as methods of transacting amongst themselves with trading minutes on their phones and things like that. So they already have e-cash or electronic cash from their cell phone. So it's technically already there. It's just not an officially announced situation there. But in regards to Africa, I've had a viewer at the Rethinking It Out channel reach out to me via email. He's in Djibouti right now, and that's on the eastern coast of Africa. And he was saying that, hey, in the Chinese population there's some situations where he's confirmed that there's 1 or 2 cases there that he himself witnessed being near the hospital, around the hospital. So there's some activity in that region there. It's just that we may not be hearing about it, because I think the mainstream media would definitely not want to mention the total amount of countries that are probably being impacted by this. So it's designed to be a global event for sure.
Yeah, and the U.S. military has a base in Djibouti as well, so we should be knowing these things. They're definitely suppressing it one way or another, and that's the thing, right? When they say the risk is low, they know what the real situation in China is. Let's not get that twisted. They know if there's been 50,000 people and millions infected, they know that, right? They've got satellite imagery. They can pinpoint all of this stuff. They can see what's going on through the cameras. And then just one more point about John Leonard's, because that's 2 points really. Then the other point is, just like they say, hey, cash is used by drug dealers and terrorists and this and that. Now it's, hey, it could be contaminated with Wuhan coronavirus. We just got to get rid of the cash altogether. So that's a good point too.
That's a good approach. Yeah. So I'm honestly believing that this current situation now is the ultimate tactic that can be used outside of war, which they were not able to get officially, because I don't think Trump took the bait with the whole Iran situation. So what better way to really cause disruption other than the health scare? So this to me is going to be the lead indicator that can bring down the economy, and it can be something that can be pushed as saying that it wasn't our fault. Everything was going fine. The markets were at all-time highs and everything was going great, and until it wasn't. And so that's kind of what's occurring right now, I think.
It is, exactly. And, I actually wrote about this in my Friday wrap because I think that we're in a new paradigm. Because Gerald Salente was one who used to always say, when all else fails, they take us to war.
Mm-hmm.
Not an era of smartphones and 5G and social media. The new one is, when all else fails, unleash a pandemic.
Yeah, that's what it's lined up to be, and it's unfortunate because this is something that goes well beyond war. Because war, you can kind of see it coming. Like that this nation having problems, and they're fighting amongst each other. You send some boots on the ground, and it's one of the things where you become a supporter of your nation's military and just cheer them on. And now it's like, man, it's coming to your doorstep. Like this situation can come to your doorstep, to your job, to everywhere else. And it can trap you in your home. Like that's the ultimate way of keeping people out of the streets in mass protests if they're forced to stay at home because they're afraid to go outside to be around other people.
Now you wonder why all those bunkers have been bought up by all the rich people over the last several years. It's like all this stuff is like starting to come together, and it's just, I don't know. It's exciting on one end, but it's not exciting on the other because, it appears that to get to the next financial system, it's not going to be the right way. It's going to be the central bank, government, evil people controlled way,
Yeah, and so it's a thought here. Lucy says, we the people just let them do it while we chat. And so it's one of the things where this current situation that's being unleashed upon us is one of the things where it's not much, I think, that me and you, as well as the people who are viewing, we got over close to 300 people watching. It's not much we can do directly. And so just like in our monetary system, outside of just taking practical steps that you are aware of taking, getting your gold, getting your silver, getting prepared in best ways you know how, that's pretty much all we can do. Like we can scream to the top of our lungs, but yet it takes a unified effort by millions, of which, unfortunately, 99.99% of the population is still asleep. So how, there's nothing we can do other than educate ourselves and take steps that can hopefully better us off in the future. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, I wish there was more that we could do. But apart from prayer, putting it in God's hands, that's the ultimate weapon that we have. Is me personally, as well as you must have as believers, is that let God do it. He's more than aware of what's going on. So yeah. I can go down a preaching lane with that one.
That's quite all right, because people are going to be finding a lot of soul searching here as this develops.
Oh my goodness, so yes, it will.
And and it's really just only starting, right? So the point here, and let me wrap this up, and then I'll let you have the closing thoughts. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for having patience again. First and foremost, though, because we went a couple minutes late again today, but that's because I'm tweaking it, and I think I finally got all the audio situations worked out on my end. But just the point is, the mainstream media is trying to push a return to normalcy. I don't think that narrative is going to last much longer at all. And, you start seeing videos from Mexico, people falling face planting in the sidewalk in the middle of the street and stuff coming out of China. I don't know if the world's really ready for that yet, because, now it's in our backyard, and now there's something that, because we like to think, oh, well, the U.S. government can handle it, or the Chinese government can handle it. But what about some other country who might not have the best, health and human services department, right? No. So, this is only just now starting. Food shortages in Hong Kong, food shortages from panic buying in Singapore. These are reports coming out. Global shortage of this personal protective equipment all the way around. This is going, and then short supply of critical, China produces 40% of the world's computers. They main export is technology. You can get Bangladesh and India to ramp up underwear production, right? And sheets and towels and socks and shirts, but you can't really ramp up high-tech electronic manufacturing like that. So this is really only just starting. That's the point that I want to make. And they're trying to make it look normal here, but I think that myth is going to get shattered before this week is even over. So that's all I got today, Mike. Go ahead and close us out, and we'll wrap for Monday, and we'll see everybody on Wednesday.
Yeah, so I would imagine that because of all the news and the developments of this health scare, it's just going to be a matter of time before the mainstream narrative of everything is fine fades out, and then it's reflected in the financial markets, because everything that will be done from now until whenever is to prop up the markets. So the question will be, at what point will they let it go under and then use this current pandemic event as the catalyst for the reason why everything went under? So we could possibly see the demolition of our monetary system and the reboot of something else this year, perhaps, or definitely heading into the next 1, 2, 3 years, because if this health situation is the real deal and is something that they allow to get out of control, we can expect a whole new world order within a very short period of time, and therefore everything we know as having been normal, will no longer be the case. Therefore, losing your retirements and all stuff like that will be impacted by the markets, and they can say you were good, everything was set to go until. So it's just going to be until that everyone's waiting upon. So unfortunately, hopefully we're not caught up in that. But yeah, so that's it. But if that being the case, be blessed, be safe. We'll see you guys later. Until then, if you enjoyed this afternoon chat, don't be afraid to give us a thumbs up and share this so more people can find out what's going on. Because once again, you won't get this perspective on your mainstream news. So that's all I'm saying.
Peace.